All right, everyone, time to talk about Joe Biden again because he's having some difficulties and they're a little bit beyond like the normal gaffe difficulties that Biden usually has. Like when he brings little kids up on stage and makes a Me Too joke, that's pretty bad. That may have been a dementia moment in and of itself, but have you seen him slurring his words like very conspicuously in multiple speeches now? It wasn't just his "Hey, yeah, I'm officially in, I'm officially running" speech. He's been doing that almost continuously the whole time, and it's making me wonder whether he's actually in good health. Now I know that this is a continuous thing. It's like, is Trump healthy? Maybe he's too fat. Is Clinton healthy? No, but that was more obvious. But with Joe Biden, it's constant. It's not like with Hillary Clinton's coughing fit, what is it? Coughing fits, pants of shit sort of thing. It's more like he just looks like an old man, and the optics aren't great. No, it goes further than that, though. Because he actually mixed up Theresa May with Margaret Thatcher, and I'm thinking, if Trump did this, and his fans would think it was funny, everyone else would like cock an eyebrow. They'd be like, oh, there's Trump again, being either dumb or being, this is evidence of the president's lunacy. Where are the Democrats talking about Joe Biden about this? He's 3 or 4 years older than Trump. I think 4 years older than Trump now. 75, 76. I actually underestimated his age. And I guess it was that facelift he got 10 years ago. But I'm questioning at this point whether he actually becomes the nominee. Now keep this in mind. He's the front runner. He's definitely the most, on paper, he's the most qualified candidate to run against Trump. He's got the most corporate money backing him. As long as he doesn't make any major mistakes, he should have it in the bag. See, here's the problem. Before anyone actually votes in the Democratic primaries, he has to survive the debates. And he has to survive for additional many months without making a major mistake. But he's already making quite a few errors. Mixing up a major head of state's name, it puts him in the same category in the minds of some Democrats, I'm sure, with Trump. And they're going to pounce on it. And here's another thing. Here's something that you see. This is a modern political dynamic that hasn't existed before until the last few years. The Democrats are trying to circle the wagons. The DNC is desperately trying to get all of its candidates to play nice. They're saying, don't attack one another, attack Trump specifically, the Republicans' platform secondarily, don't even attack the Republican Party. We're going to play it nice and be clean. That doesn't mean that the Democratic lay people that are on the internet, millions and millions of them who are much more vicious and prone towards antagonizing one another, aren't going to pounce. So what you're going to have is you're going to have mobs of people's little cliques within politics attacking one another in a grassroots fashion. Doesn't fucking matter what the candidate does. Yang is the first person to truly have to reckon with this. He was, for a while, they're being memed. Now that wasn't organic, that was mainly Yang's people. He had problems because a lot of the people that were jumping aboard were saying crazy shit, and he had to come out and literally disavow a portion of his own audience. This is going to become a big problem for certain politicians. And just think, he's not a mainstream politician. He's a dude who never cracked 2 or 3%. And I realize, by the way, right now my lighting is acting in a funny manner. There's literally nothing I can do about it. Vermont weather, it's like clouds constantly. And so it undulates between more cloudy, more sunny. The lighting here is a little off. There's nothing I can do about that. But I'm questioning whether he can actually survive long enough. Like, I'm looking forward to the first few states. You've got Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada. I think it's unchanged. And that's a pretty good demographic mix. Iowa's a more rural state that leans red. New Hampshire's a more rural and specifically New England, Northeast state that leans slightly blue at this point. It's basically a swing state. South Carolina is a red state, large minority population, a little bit more urban than an Iowa or something. And then Nevada is basically Las Vegas, an urban mecca with some farms around it. So it's a pretty good sprinkling of the country. If I had to guess, like if it were held today, Biden would win all 4 states. The only thing that even Bernie Sanders can compete in is New Hampshire. And if you look at the polling, there's simply no path forward for most of the candidates within the Democratic field. More than half of the candidates are fundamentally disqualified by the fact that they don't have any support. At this point, you could argue from some of the polls that there are only 4 viable candidates left. There's still time for some maverick dark horse to jump in, but I thought that honestly could have been Julian Castro. Instead, what the media is the worst enemy of the Democrats. By the way, to the DNC, since they watch YouTube videos, obviously, since they make data reports about them, keep something in mind. The legacy media that 99% of them support the Democratic Party over the Republicans, although they like the neocon Republicans almost as much. These people are actually your own worst enemy. Because what they've done is by precluding, especially like CNN, MSNBC that conduct polling, they've precluded some of these lower level candidates from even appearing on the polls, making it look like they weren't viable from day one. Julian Castro and Kirsten Gillibrand could have saved your party. Fundamentally, the problem is Gillibrand was advised to go further left. She basically disqualified herself. Julian Castro, who is well-spoken enough and Obama-esque enough to override the fact that he was further left, has been completely shafted, is dead in the water, probably has no campaign money at the moment. So the two most qualified people other than boring Joe Biden have been fucked. Now you're left with a dilemma here. Joe Biden is showing signs of early onset dementia. That much is clear. He's having trouble remembering names. He's slurring his words. He's just confused. He's an old man. He would be almost 80 years old on Inauguration Day. We had this debate last time around. Trump wasn't even quite 70 yet, neither was Clinton. We were talking about their age. He's more than half a decade older than these candidates. Trump's not going to be a spring chicken. Even what, on Inauguration Day, he'd be 73, I believe, right? Something around that range. Hillary Clinton would have been 73, almost 74. The oldest presidents, oldest presidential campaigners in history. Your two front runners are geriatric. Trump's almost geriatric. That doesn't make any sense. And Bernie said, by the way, Biden needs to knock Bernie Sanders out in New Hampshire. Bernie Sanders is going to bet on New Hampshire to hold that because Vermont is right where I am. This state is right next to New Hampshire. Sanders has a massive support base in New Hampshire, and all those Vermonters are more than happy to cross the Connecticut River to go campaign anyway. Nobody here is going to care whether they're Vermonters or not, because they're called the Twin States for a reason. We're basically the same thing. We're the higher tax, slightly more environmentally friendly side. They're the lower tax, more gun-loving and more libertarian side. But we're basically bound together completely. Hell, we should just become one state, but the people in New Hampshire won't allow it because they don't want a bunch of hippies deciding politics. I don't think that all the hippies here want a bunch of gun-toting libertarians in their state as well. But if Sanders doesn't win that, he gets knocked out. But how is Biden going to survive to that point intact enough to override that? Because remember, if Sanders is a fairly distant at this point, number two, but in the number two candidate, Biden could still end up losing New Hampshire. That means that Sanders can hold on, wait until Nevada, probably half the candidates drop out. There's a reshuffling of support, and it is possible that an anti-Biden platform light could carry Bernie Sanders in to be your nominee. Here's the Democrats' dilemma, though. Pick your poison. Which would you rather lose to Donald Trump? An elderly socialist or an elderly dynastic former VP with possible early onset dementia? Which one would you rather lose? Because I can guarantee they can't win against Trump. Not with the economy the way it is right now. I think Bernie Sanders would lose by a larger margin. I think that all of those scared center leftists would flee the Democratic Party almost day one. I think Trump's support would rise by 3 or 4 points. I think his approval would begin to rise. And I think that we would end up having a referendum election, but it wouldn't be a referendum on Trump. It'd be a referendum on the Democratic Party going so far left that it sticks its head in a blender. That's what we'd have a referendum on. And I think Trump would sweep half the blue states. Yes, Trump would crush Bernie Sanders. I don't care what some Bernie bro wants to say. Once people realize how old he is, how crazy he is, how fucking fundamentally flawed his economic ideas are, and once they dig into a little bit of the nitty-gritty of his overall plan for free shit, and they realize it comes attendant with a massive tax increase, and that's the only way it can even break even, yeah, all of those working and middle-class voters who would see their brackets upped by a good portion, they're not going to vote for him. Oh, it's just the tippy tops. The tippy tops will pay for it. Yeah, those tippy tops employ the lower downs. That's the problem. So then all of a sudden, you don't have unemployment of 3.6. You have unemployment of 8.6. Wonderful. Yeah, that would be a great idea. And the problem is Bernie Sanders can't accomplish anything. If he were to get elected, he would end up having to adopt a standard neoliberal platform because the other Democrats would not allow him to go further. They would talk a big game. Some of these people, they'll come out and say, yeah, we like the idea of free shit too, but it's just not feasible. So we're going to have to half-ass it. That's not going to work with the younger Democratic voters. They're all avowed socialists and progressives, which is socialist under a different name. I don't know if Joe Biden, though, will be able to make it far enough to actually stop Bernie Sanders. That's the fundamental problem. If Biden has some major gaffe, or if he has a major health problem, which could happen at his age in the next year or so, he may not be able to make it. Yeah, then even worse for the Democrats. Imagine this doomsday scenario, since both of your front-runners are geriatric old white dudes. Imagine this doomsday scenario. They do win, they're doing fine, then they drop dead of a stroke. And then whoever they chose as a running mate, if they've chosen one at all by that point, that's the person that ends up running. Oh, it would be hilarious. Maybe you should just get Joe Biden to pick someone who's actually viable, as like Julian Castro as his VP, and then hope he strokes out. That might be the Democrats' best hope for surviving 2020. I just don't see it in the cards for them. And they say, well, Trump's approval is only like 44%. So in other words, it's exactly the same as, in fact, it's slightly ahead of where Obama was at this point in his presidency. That should make you nervous, not happy. That's about all. Peace out.